Hey guys, Mike from Missouri. Today's November 5th, election day, and it's time to get the heat going for the house and the shop. And I did a video a long time ago about what I use for heat in my shop, and I just want to kind of give an update how it works and what I did to accomplish the oil heat that I'm using. So I'll show you this in a little bit, but I'm using an outdoor or an indoor boiler from Badaris with a Beckett oil burner, which is what they would use in the Northeast for fuel oil, converted to waste oil. And I use approximately, 1,000 gallons of used oil a winter that heats the house and this shop. The boiler is in a separate building away from both buildings, so there's no insurance issues. The kit that I use to convert the Beckett burner is from CK Burners. They give you this instruction packet of how to convert it. I believe he's still in business online, but you can basically you're taking the nozzle and everything, the original nozzle out, and converting it to a preheater setup. I'll show you the aluminum block here that he machines. So this replaces the original nozzle, and there's a little heating element that slides in here, and the oil goes through this and is preheated. And there's a special waste oil nozzle that screws into the end. But let me bring you out to the building, and you can see kind of where the proximity of it is in relation to the shop. All right, so I'm leaving the shop, and there's the building that heats the house and the shop. I call it the boiler shack. That's where the indoor boiler lives. And then there's underground piping that goes from that building to the shop underground. It's like 36 inches down, so it won't freeze. And then from that building to the house as well. And there's a storage tank for hot water, 500-gallon storage tank inside that kind of used as a buffer. All the hot water is stored in there, and then the house pulls off of it as necessary. But this building originally was a pad for dog kennels, and I built this building on it right when we moved in. It is a little messy in here because you get some soot and ash, but let me show you the setup. Originally, when I put this heating system in, I went with wood only. I grew up with heating with wood. And I used that for the first 4 or 5 years, and then I found out with kids and my work travel schedule that it was just too much time invested to do what I wanted to do as far as heating the house full time. So I do plan on using that again probably later in life, but I installed this basically a Badaris branded boiler. It's messy, but it's really what they would use on the East Coast for number 2 fuel oil, and so is this burner. Let me get some better light in here. Give you kind of an overall view. But I tied this in parallel, and this is like I said, a Beckett burner, and it's been converted for waste motor oil or transmission fluid, anything. It can burn vegetable oil, even though I don't do that. Originally, I had it set up as a siphon system, which is why there's this float tank. There's a float level in here. So it's like a toilet bowl float, but I was having some issues with it feeding consistently, especially when the viscosity of the oil changes. So I converted it to what's called a pressure system. So there's a little pump inside there that pumps at a certain gallons per minute and force feeds the nozzle inside this burner. But if you're not familiar with this burner, basically there's a squirrel cage fan in here. This is a igniter. There's two prongs that go out into this blast tube that throw a spark. And then this pump on the side, which I just replaced because I used the original pump. I can take the internals out and I use it to suck oil from my large tank outside, but it was wore out. But originally this pump would pressurize the nozzle, and that's how it would burn the number 2 fuel oil. In this case, the nozzle's pressurized with an air compressor set at about 11 psi. It's a pressure regulator. I have a little oilless compressor up there on that red tank, and then the green tank is a big reserve tank, so it doesn't have to come on and off so often. But depending on which one you have on, I can heat the house and shop with the wood boiler. I can do it solely with the oil boiler, which I've been using this setup. This will be the 7th winter that I've used this oil boiler setup. And there's, as far as storage goes, I got a large steel tank out here that has got a supply and return, and I keep all the oil in there so it's safe and no oil leaks that can get into the ground or anything, as I don't want contaminated dirt on my property, obviously. But this little pump on the side pulls the oil from the top of that metal tank, and it goes back into these, it goes into a return line. And if you notice, there's this little extra leg off of this return. It takes the easier path into this tank and keeps the tank full until it's full. And when it's full, the rest of it returns into what you call like a day tank. This is what I primarily pull off the oil from through the week, because it's inside here and it's warm, and it's better than pulling it off of the cold tank out there. Let me give you I actually need to start this up for the winter. It was real humid the other day, so I had issues with getting it to fire. But I also my float tank was empty because of this pump went bad, and I pulled some oil off the bottom of the metal tank to fill this up, and I believe my oil has got a lot of moisture in it, so I may need to add a little bit of gasoline to it to get it to fire for the season, because this whole area is cold and it doesn't ignite as easy when the boiler is cold. But let me get this thing fired up and see if it'll take off here. I turn this on, and it's 67 and 76. This is for a heater in this float tank. I have it set at 76 degrees, and it's currently at 66, so it'll slowly warm this oil up to temperature. You can see this controller says hard lockout. That's because it tried to ignite several times and didn't go, so I just reset it, and now it says standby because it is waiting for the preheater in the blast tube. So that aluminum block that I showed you, it's waiting for it to heat up. Once it hits about 190 degrees, it'll go ahead and try to fire. But I'll have to bring you back here when it finally warms up and goes. I have a feeling that it's going to lock out again because my oil has got too much moisture in it. And typically, this really isn't an issue. I clean this boiler once a week, which consists of taking the cover off, swinging the door open, and scraping out the ash. Because if you let it go too long, then your fumes get smoky, and I don't like, I'm not into polluting or anything any more than necessary. When this thing's running as it should, it burns clear. really relatively no smoke or anything. I have neighbors that are, you know, not super close, but I've never had anyone complain about it, and they know that, at least a few of them know I'm burning waste oil. So here it went and tried to ignite. So it doesn't look like it's going to take off here. Unfortunately. So I'm going to head and unplug the pump so it doesn't fill the whole combustion chamber with oil. And we'll have to open it up and see what it looks like inside. So that dribbling noise you're hearing is the return oil that's filling this day tank from the outside tank. That tank is only about half full, so you're hearing it dribble from the entrance at the top. So this is what I do when I clean it. I swing this open. And then I would run this brush here through all the passages. Of course, this thing isn't super dirty at the moment, but you can see some of the oil down there. That's from it not igniting. I wish I had I'll give you a better view. There you go. So that's what the end of the burner looks like. You can see the two little things up top here. It's where the spark comes off. The center is the specific waste oil nozzle. All the fins called it's called a retention head, and it swirls the air and keeps the flame kind of close to the burner and not really long. The boiler is about 2 feet deep, and that piece of scrap, it's a piece of stainless, kind of acts like not really an afterburner, but it gets really hot, and it helps with any of the oil that gets through the flame and not combusted, kind of like a catalyst or catalytic converter in a car, where it sits there really hot and burns any remaining oil mist off, so you get a better complete combustion. You can kind of see it looks kind of wet. This oil that's coming through here right now is, like I said, is kind of contaminated with a lot of moisture, so that's why it doesn't want to go. I'm actually going to see if it'll fire outside the boiler here. It's not the smartest idea, but just to give you an idea how it works. Close it so it halfway goes in. Now, I started it one more time out of the boiler, and it seems to have taken off finally. So I'm happy about that. I'm just going to let it run here for a little bit, and hopefully it'll keep going. Well, it ran for a while and then kicked off, but you can hear the air compressor running in the background. I'm not real sure what's going on with it, but this is a good introduction to using waste oil to heat your house. It seems like there's always something that's not quite right. I can usually go quite a while, a month or two, without an issue, but it seems inevitably something needs attention. It's definitely not as trouble-free as just turning the propane on, but it seems to want to fire outside the burner fine, which usually is an indication of a exhaust flue plugged, but I don't think that's an issue. I cleaned that out earlier this fall, but I'm going to reset it again. You can see kind of how it works here. It kind of dies off for some reason. I don't understand why. Yeah, smoky. This controls the pump, so when I unplug it, it's not pouring oil inside, unburned oil. It's in the middle of winter where the humidity is lower. You don't get so much water in your air lines. There's a drain. And I even drained the one back there not too terribly long ago. Let's see if I can reach back there. A little bit came out. Come on. Come on. Nope. Not gonna fire. Fortunately, I think I'm gonna have to mix some gas into my little tank on the side to get this thing to go. Here's that tank with the float I was talking about. And need to get some gasoline mixed into that and run some through, because there's a filter down there, but it's going to take a while to get it sucked through the system. Alright, well, I admit it'd be preferable to use diesel fuel. This thing could actually burn straight diesel, but I'm going to mix in some gas because that's all I have. Mix that around a little bit. So now we need to run it through. And the easiest way to do that is I take a extension cord that's plugged in and just go hook it right to the pump, force it to run, and then just catch it in this container. There you go. You can't really see it, but it's got a fine stream of oil coming out. It'll take quite a while to move that through. You can see it now. Here's a little bit better view of that fine stream. While we're waiting on that, it's the second bowl. I'll show you the metering pump is what some call this. This is homemade. Get it off here with one hand or not. So it's a little gear motor. Another one of those pumps that bolt to the side of the burner. And it's running at I figured out the RPM, I don't remember what it was, 100 and some RPM, and it puts out a certain volume of oil for every rotation. So and there's a gauge on here that I don't ever use, but if it gets, the nozzle get restricted, the pressure builds. So again, that's, a lot of people use a siphon system, but I have better luck with the pressure feed. You can put a little bit smaller nozzle in your burner, but it's not as susceptible to get a piece of debris in the nozzle. It just builds the pressure up and usually pushes it on through. But I've been taking a little sample of this, smelling it. You can smell if it has the fuel in it or not. So I'm gonna run a little bit more through it, and I'll bring you back when I'm ready to fire it again. All right, I ran a little through. I'm not sure if I got enough through it or not to get some gasoline into the actual stream, but I'm gonna give it a try here, see what it does. Resetting it now. Oh, that air leak you hear at the beginning is because I have a bleed set. Still nothing. So what I mean by the bleed is when this thing is first starting or igniting, it doesn't like as much air pressure, so I bleed some of it off. And then once it's ignited, the solenoid closes and gives it full air pressure. Otherwise, I run into false starts, and that is basically completely eliminated that issue. So I'm going to run through more through the pump here. I still don't smell any gas coming out of here, but I'm getting impatient. Okay, well, I just thought of something. That maybe the oil is initially igniting, well, early in the video it was, and then tapering out, that the preheat needs turned up because the oil I have in there isn't as likely to light off. So I brought the thermostat for the preheater and the nozzle from 200 to 250. I'm hoping that will get this thing to fire up and go for the season. Like I said, I usually never have this much problem with this, but the oil quality varies. Well, apparently that didn't help. I still think it's an oil problem. I mean, is that oil or steam? Almost seems like it's steam from all the moisture in the oil. Is that not just proof how much moisture's in there? Oil doesn't steam off, I don't think. Well, there was a piece of junk in the nozzle, but I don't think it's been in there long. This is the look of the waste motor oil nozzle. The oil comes in the brass part, the air goes around the brass part, and then the air comes out around the nozzle and atomizes it, which allows it to ignite the fuel. So I'm going to get this back in here. You always want to put some anti-seize on the threads because we're just screwing it into aluminum, and it is a 5/8 thread. Barely tighten this up. Okay, let's try this again. Incredibly irritating. Okay, pretty much fed up at this point, so I took that filter housing off, made a huge mess, completely drained it out, and now I'm bleeding it, filling that housing back up. The pump's running, but it hasn't picked up oil yet, but I'm convinced again that this oil is bad. Probably my own fault because I had pulled some oil off the bottom of my metal tank, and I needed to prime this pump that I put on, this new pump on the side of the burner here, and I think it was too much water or antifreeze in it, and now I'm dealing with the effects of having to bleed it all through. But I'm hoping now, once this takes prime, I'll get some of that more gasoline mixed oil in there, and I can finally get this thing to take off. But what a pain. Okay, I got her primed again. I'm confident or hopeful that this thing will finally fire off on me. I'm going to go ahead and close it. Finally! Doesn't seem to like I'll let the combustion chamber get hot here and see what it does. There's a ton of water in that. You can see it all boiling off down in there. The bottom. Yeah. That's why it wouldn't light. The only reason it's lit now is because of all the gas in it. But yeah, that oil's contaminated with way too much water. I'm going to close her up. Hey guys, thanks for sticking with me on that. I'm going to sort this the rest of the way out. I'm 100% sure it's the oil now, but thought you guys would find it interesting to see kind of what I have to deal with through the winter time sometimes. We'll see you on the next one.